Hello again. I'd like to continue the discussion of the UITableView Cell Accessory view. And in the last video, I made a simple, table view example that, it displays 10 rows and then it puts an image in the accessory view. And this works fine, but oftentimes you'll want to do something like tap on a row to change the accessory view. Right now, my project has two files in it. It has a filled heart and a not filled heart. So what I want to do is I want to swap between these two, or either one of these images as you tap on a cell. So I'm going to go into my view controller here, and this is you can follow the last video to get to this stage. And what I'm going to do now is I have 10 rows here. And what I'd like to do is I'd like to create an array to keep track of the state of each cell. Okay, so I'm going to make a brand new array, and it will be an array of Booleans. Okay, so it'll just be true and false. And you could use other data for this. I'm just going to make this really simple. We've got an array. Every row is going to show a TableView cell. And if the value at that position in the array is true, the cell will show the filled heart. And if it's false, it'll show the not filled heart. Okay, so we've got an array for every, to store a true or false value for each of the cells that we're going to display. So right now I've got TableView, number of rows in section, and the number of rows we're returning is 10. Okay, but what I want to do now is I want to return a number of rows equal to the count of my array. Okay, and maybe in ViewDidLoad, we'll use a for loop. How about let's count 1 to 10. Okay. We got to put var in there. Oh, maybe not. There we go, right? Okay, so we'll say for var I in 1 to 10, and so it's going to count 1 to 10. And when we count, why don't we say, array dot append false. Okay? So now we've got an array, and it's got 10 false values in it. And now when we display the number of rows in the table view, there'll be 10 rows in the table view because that's the count of the array. Okay? So our next step here is to display the cell in the table view, right? And when we display the cell, we'll put the accessory view in, but we want to decide now which view to show. And either I want to show the filled heart or the not filled heart depending on the value in the array. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a variable here, all right, called image, right? And then I want to choose to put the name in here, the name either heart filled or heart PNG, depending on the value of the true or false here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say var file name is heart.png, and then we'll just say if array bracket index path dot row, right? So since each item in the index in the array is either true or false, then if this particular item in the array is true, then this is true, and if it's false, then this is false, right? So so if that item is true, why don't we change the file name to heartfill.png, right? And that's the name of my file. You can use if you have other files, you can use that name instead. Okay, and now when we create the image right here, instead of using the name heart filled, why don't we use file name? Okay, and that'll be the name of our accessory. So let's give that a test here. Oh, so we get the same results we had before. What if our array was filled with true values? Like right now it's filled with false values. Let's set the array here to append true values, right? So I went to the view did load, and then I changed the append value from false to true, and so now we're going to add, true values to the array. Oh, now all the hearts are filled, right? Okay, so that's working okay. What if we want to change the value of the true or false in the array depending on, when you tap the cell? So to do that, I'm going to type TableView did select row at index path. Okay, so did select row at index path. Be careful because there's a did deselect row, which looks almost the same. Okay, so don't get that one. And when we select a row at the index path, why don't we find that cell and then change the accessory, right? So first of all, we're gonna let's change the true or false value in the array at the index path row. So let's say, array bracket index path dot row equals not array index path dot row. Okay, so here, when we tap on a TableView cell, whatever the value is at the index path, currently we'll invert that value and then set it. So that should flip the value from true to false or false to true. So next, let's get the cell that we're dealing with. So which cell did you just tap on? Well, did select row at index path doesn't tell you the cell, but it does tell you the index path. So it tells you where, which number cell you tapped on. So let's say cell equals TableView dot cell for row at index path. So we can always ask the TableView, hey, can you give me the cell that's at this particular index path? So let's type in index path here because this method requires that. And I'm going to hold the option key here, and if I click on cell for row at index path, we'll see that it returns a UITableView cell, and then it's got the question mark at the end. So it actually returns an optional value. Okay, so it may return a cell or it might return a nil. And that can happen if we give it an index path here that's out of range for the cells, right? So if we ask for a cell that doesn't exist, then it's going to return a nil. So what we're going to do is we're going to say if let cell equal, TableView cell for row at index path. So, if we get a cell returned to us, then inside the if statement, cell will have the value that we expect, and if it returns a nil, it'll just skip over this block of code and continue on. Okay, so that's a little error checking there with the optional value. And so now that we've got the cell, let's set the accessory. And essentially, we can just copy this code right here, right? So I'm just going to copy this block that gets the name here. We're going to have to do a little bit with this array index path, right? But actually, I guess we can just leave that alone too. So we'll just paste that in there, and then we'll do one more thing. If you selected a cell, you did select a cell, then we want to deselect that cell because otherwise the cell will stay highlighted. So let's let's take a look at that, and then you'll see what I mean, and we'll fix it. So I tap a cell, oh look, and then it becomes not filled. Then I tap another one, it becomes not filled. Or it's filled, right? Now this gray is the cell selected state, and sometimes you want the cell to stay selected so you know which one you tapped on, but in our case I actually want that to go away. I just want to tap it and see it for a moment and then disappear, and then this will indicate the selected cell or the state for the particular cell. So what we're going to do is, maybe I'll just put it right up here, is we'll say TableView deselect row at index path. Okay, and then over here we'll supply the index path of the cell that we want to deselect, and then there's an option here that says animated, and it's a Boolean, and so you can say, you know, do you want the effect to be animated or not animated? I'm going to say, yeah, let's animate that effect. So I'll put a true in here. Okay, and then I'll test it again. Oh, so now you can see when I tap on the cell, it fades out. That's the animation. Okay, and so that is working pretty good. So you know, I like everything I have here. My one issue is that you know, the code isn't very good. We're you know, reusing this block of code twice, but we've essentially written the same code 2 times, and so you know, that could create problems. If we wanted to edit the code, we'd have to edit it in 2 places, you know. So let's add another function here. Let's say set Cell Accessory, right? And this method is just one that we've made up for ourselves, you know, as a helper. And what we'll do is we'll receive a UITableView cell as an argument or parameter, right? And then we'll act on that TableView cell. Okay, so these 2 functions can call on the cell. And since the cell needs to decide the state of the image, like which image to use, we'll include an extra option here, and we'll say filled, maybe, right? And this will be a Boolean. So if filled is true, then you know, it shows the filled heart, and if it's not filled, then it shows the outline. Okay, so we can take this block of code that we used a moment ago, and I'm going to place it here. And we have a little problem because this says like, hey, if array, you know, index path.row. Well, you know, there is no index path in this function, like it's not defined here, but we're using filled, you know, for that value actually, right? Because we want the filled state to match the value that's at the array, right? Or at the index path in the array. So I'm going to type filled here. And then now when we call this function, we'll set the file name to heart. And if the heart is, you know, supposed to be filled, the filled variable will be true, and we'll switch the name to, you know, heart fill.png, right? And then we'll, you know, assign an image to the image variable, create a new image view, and then assign the image view to the cell accessory, and we've passed cell to this function for this function to work with, right? So what we're going to do now is I'm going to delete all of this code here inside our if let statement, and we'll say, how about set cell accessory, and then we need to get our TableView cell here. Oh, I guess we've already got it there, so we'll just type in cell, and then for the filled variable right here, we'll make it array bracket index path dot row. So that'll be the value that is going to be true or false, whether or not the heart should be filled. And then, you know, we can actually just copy this line and then do the same thing right here and replace the same code that we had before with that line. And then these 2 functions are very streamlined, and then we don't duplicate any of this code anywhere else. Let's give it a quick test. Oh, there we go, and it's working just the same as it was before, but our code is refactored and running a little better. Okay, so anyway, so there's a little example of using custom TableView accessory, okay?